When you think of Downton Abbey, you probably think of the romance between Mary and Matthew, but theirs wasn't the best romance on the show. Which was better? Keep watching to find out. This brief romance has to be ranked dead last. If you'll recall, in Season 2 of Downton Abbey, the Earl of Grantham, Robert Crawley, has an affair with the new maid, Jane. Normally, we'd be all for a class-defying romance, especially in a series where that's so rare. But when it comes as a result of Robert cheating on his wife Cora, it's unacceptable. At the time, Cora is quite busy managing the estate, which they had turned into a convalescent home for soldiers. Apparently, his wife not being available for social gatherings or to entertain him becomes too much for Robert, and he has a couple brief liaisons with Jane. The second tryst is an even greater betrayal because Cora is sick with the Spanish flu at the time. At least Robert feels guilty enough afterward that he allows Jane to resign and decides to help pay for her son's schooling. Although the relationship on Downton Abbey between the scullery maid, Daisy, and the footman, William, was cute at times, overall it was uncomfortable to watch how it was sometimes forced on Daisy. William had been infatuated with Daisy from the beginning of the show, but Daisy is hesitant to return his obvious affection. However, when William goes to war, Mrs. Patmore pushes Daisy into accepting William's marriage proposal. Then, when William is badly wounded in battle, Daisy is again pushed into taking their relationship further and marrying him. Mrs. Patmore insists that because William is dying, it would be wrong for Daisy to turn him down. Daisy still doesn't want to accept, even telling Mrs. Patmore,
"I can't lie to him at the end. Don't make me be false to a dying man."
But Daisy is backed into a corner. The pair marry in one of the Abbey's bedrooms, while William is confined to bed, where Daisy stays with him until he dies. Though Anthony Strachan is quite a bit older than her, Lady Edith is excited at the prospect of their marriage. The actress who plays Edith, Laura Carmichael, said of Edith and Anthony's engagement, "She would have been the lady of the manor, and it would have been all of the things that she'd expected for her life." However, on their wedding day, Anthony decides to call it off at the altar. He claims to be doing it for Edith so that she doesn't throw away her life. The whole experience is humiliating and heartbreaking for poor Edith, who thought she was making the safe choice by marrying him. After being pushed into a relationship with William on Downton Abbey, Daisy is fairly hesitant with love, but her relationship with footman Andy Parker seems a lot more two-sided than the one she had with William. Perhaps that's because of how much her character grows. Of her character, actress Sophie McShera told Tribute Movies,
She was this girl who was terrified of everyone, and now she's this woman who's not afraid to speak her mind and knows what she wants and has desires and ambitions and political opinions.
That growth is especially evident in the 2019 Downton Abbey film. Throughout the movie, Daisy is passionate about her politics, and while she and Andy are a couple, they are not yet married, which may be a good thing given suggestions that Andy's jealous rage at Daisy flirting with the plumber. The jury is still out on this one. Lord and Lady Grantham are the longest-standing couple on the show, and they definitely share some sweet moments. However, the pair also has many low points throughout the relationship. First, there was Robert's affair in Season 2 with the maid Jane. Then the pair comes close to infidelity again when Simon Bricker attempts to start an affair with Cora. Although Cora flirts with him when Simon comes to her room uninvited, she's quick to tell him to leave. But that doesn't stop Robert from getting in a physical fight with Simon. Perhaps the most challenging part of their relationship comes after their daughter Sybil's death. During her labor, Dr. Clarkson recommends Sybil be taken to the hospital, which Cora agrees with, but sadly, Sir Philip disagrees. Robert takes Philip's side. When Sybil then dies after her at-home birth, Cora is understandably distraught and blames her husband for not heeding the doctor's advice to take her to the hospital. Though the pair eventually overcome all their marital disputes, it's hard to forget these moments. Between her many social causes and bickering with the Dowager, Isobel Crawley doesn't have time for many romantic interests. Her husband died before the show begins, and for many seasons it seems she would not find another love. However, after Matthew's tragic death, Isobel seems quite lonely. She eventually forms a friendship with Lord Merton, or Richard Grey, and in Season 5, Richard plucks up the courage to confess his love and ask Isobel to marry him. His proposal is quite heartfelt as he assures her he is not proposing because he's lonely or because a wife will make him comfortable, but because he's fallen in love with her. Though Isobel does not accept at that moment, the pair does later marry. Throughout Downton Abbey, Lady Mary never struggles to find willing suitors. However, after her husband Matthew's death, it isn't easy for her to find anyone she's interested in. Henry Talbot is the first man she is able to love after Matthew. Henry enjoys driving race cars, and the pair hits it off right away, despite Mary's distaste for this hobby. When Mary explains that part of the reason she hates cars is that Matthew died in a car crash, Talbot says he understands. However, his response isn't all that sympathetic, as he immediately continues to push her to come watch him race. However, he does then confess his feelings for her and says she doesn't have to come to the racetrack if she doesn't want to. The pair marries at the end of season 6. While they are a fine couple, they never quite seemed as good of a match as Mary and Matthew. Poor Lady Edith, so unlucky in love. And yet, despite how her relationship with newspaperman Michael Gregson ended, their relationship actually did a great deal of good for Edith in the end. The two met when the bored Edith began writing opinion letters to the paper. She found an ally in Gregson who appreciated her intellect and convictions and encouraged her to write more. When Gregson went to Germany to procure a divorce from his mentally disturbed wife, however, he was tragically murdered by fascists. Edith was left heartbroken, but she was also left with a child, and with Gregson's newspaper empire giving her 2 new purposes for a previously directionless life. Mr. Molesley starts as Matthew Crawley's butler, but when Matthew dies, he's demoted to a footman. Speaking about his character, actor Kevin Doyle told Tribute Movies, "He clearly is somebody who had ambitions as a young man, and none of them were met, but as the series goes on, you begin to see him getting his just rewards." Baxter is hired as a lady's maid for Cora in the 4th season. Thomas accuses Baxter of stealing from her former employer. Molesley expects Baxter to deny it or have some explanation, but Baxter admits she stole jewelry from her mistress. Molesley wrestles with understanding her past, but he continues to believe in Baxter's goodness and gives her the courage to confess her past to Lady Cora. Molesley and Baxter never do become an official couple, but many are hopeful the second movie will finally bring the pair together. After her unlucky engagement to Anthony Strachan and the death of her lover Michael Gregson, it's only fair that Edith has a chance at real love. So, Downton Abbey fans were overjoyed when she meets Bertie Pelham. Bertie is also supportive of her magazine work and even helps her get it published, proving he cares about her passions. After working through the night together, he tells her, quote, "You inspire me." Bertie is quick to fall for Edith and to propose. However, the pair hits one bump in the road when, out of jealousy, Mary reveals that Marigold, whom Edith calls her ward, is actually Edith's child. Though he's at first upset by the deception, Bertie eventually forgives Edith and the two become happily married. Actress Laura Carmichael said, "I loved playing the wedding scene. It did feel like a very momentous day." Though she didn't join the Downton Abbey cast until season 3, Lady Rose, played by Lily James, becomes an important fixture in the Downton Abbey family. Rose is kind-hearted but has a rebellious streak, and though she eventually meets her match with Atticus Aldridge, their relationship is not without its trials. Atticus is Jewish, and while the young couple falls in love and gets engaged quite quickly, their interfaith relationship is met with pushback from both their families. Their parents exchange ignorant insults with each other at a dinner before the couple's wedding. One opponent to their marriage even tries to set Atticus up to look like he cheats on Rose at his bachelor party. But the truth eventually comes to light, and Atticus and Rose eventually happily marry. In a show without a lot of diversity, it's wonderful to see a romance that overcomes their differences and defies the norms of the time. As the butler of Downton, Carson has a leadership position among the servants. He's very traditional with a stubborn attitude. Likewise, Mrs. Hughes has her role in running the manor's day-to-day as the head housekeeper. Though she also knows how she likes things to run, she's less stern than Carson and often softens him. They make a good team throughout the whole series, but their relationship remains professional for most of it, before they finally get engaged in the season 5 finale. Speaking about the slow burn of the romance, Jim Carter, who plays Mr. Carson, said, "We got together at the speed of Galapagos tortoises." Another Downton Abbey fan favorite romance is between Anna, the lady's maid, and John Bates, the valet. The two meet at the beginning of season 1 when Bates joins the staff at Downton. He struggles with his position as a valet due to a leg injury, but Anna is quick to encourage him to stay, despite the pair not knowing each other well. From that point, the two slowly grow closer and their friendship eventually blossoms into romance. Though Anna and Bates are clearly in love, their relationship faces many roadblocks on the way to happiness, including multiple accusations of murder. But they always stay together. Joanne Froggatt, who plays Anna, said, "She's a real trooper to stick by him, but that's because they're so in love." The show kicks off when Lord Grantham's original heir dies on the Titanic, and Matthew Crawley, a distant cousin, becomes the heir of Downton. Matthew and Mary's relationship gets off to a rough start as Mary is angered by the laws that make it so Downton cannot be left to her, but their chemistry is undeniable. It was wonderful to watch how they grow from barely tolerating each other to Mary confessing her feelings and Matthew proposing marriage. But it's not smooth sailing from there. First, the engagement is called off, then there's war injuries to deal with, the death of Matthew's new fiancée, Lavinia, and more. Finally, they are married, have a baby, and live happily ever after.
You've lived your life and I've lived mine. Now it's time we live them together.
Well, until he is abruptly killed in a horrible car accident. But whatever. For Downton fans, Matthew and Mary's love lives forever. All apologies to Mary and Matthew, but the best couple in all of Downton Abbey is Lady Sybil and Tom Branson, who arrives at Downton as the new chauffeur. A relationship between a lady and a servant would be a huge scandal, but Sybil is unconcerned with social rules. Though he works for an aristocratic family, Branson is an Irish socialist, and when Sybil becomes more involved in politics, the two connect. They grow closer over time, and in Season 2, Branson confesses his love for Sybil. But while Branson pushes for their relationship to move forward, Sybil hesitates as she knows choosing Branson could mean losing her whole family. Still, love wins out, and the two ultimately get married. Though it all ends tragically with Sybil's death, we'll always remember Sybil and Branson as a couple who cross social boundaries to be together. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more list videos about your favorite stars are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.